We have a smartwatch today, the Oukitel BT10, and there's a very important lens that you have to look at this smartwatch through, and that is the price. $100 standard. Right now on the Oukitel site, you can pick it up for $60, and it's typically had on Amazon for under $70. And when you kind of keep that in mind, then I think you'll be overall pleased with what you get if you're just kind of looking for a smartwatch that's going to be a smartwatch, just a basic smartwatch that gives you some decent functionality and some sensors that you might want when it comes to health and fitness. So let's talk about it. The aesthetic is kind of a rugged aesthetic. You could get it in this orange here, or you could get it in black, just the entire blacked out version, or you could get it with the orange trim. Alcatel's billing it as a military, drop-tested, rugged. It's got a plastic construction. It looks like it feels like it could take a knock or two. I wouldn't go bashing it about, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's going to break the first time that your wrist bangs into something accidentally. So that's not an issue. 53 grams. It actually feels lighter than that on the wrist, to be honest, which is great. If you're wearing it for sleep tracking, it's not going to be obtrusive, and it's not going to be something that you don't want on your wrist at night, and you just rip it off like some of these other devices. They track monitoring, but they feel like 100 grams on the wrist, and you club your partner as you flail about in your sleep. So it's nothing like that. Really nice. Kind of a rubberized, plasticky band. It feels good. It's flexible. It is 22 millimeters, and it does have quick release. So we'll go ahead and zoom in here. So you could swap it out for any of your favorite watch bands that are 22 millimeters. You're not going to have an issue with that. There are a few things that really excel with this device, especially for the price. The first one is the screen. Really nice display. It's a get that off there. It's a 1.43 inch AMOLED display, and it gets plenty bright. I think it was like 800 nits or 650 nits, something like that, but it's bright. You're not going to have any issues in daylight. You're not going to have any issues when you're outside seeing this thing. A really nice, bright display, which is great because sometimes on these less expensive smartwatches, you don't get the best display in the world, and it's really annoying on your wrist every time that you're looking at it. A couple other things. The other thing that's the main kind of selling point of this particular smartwatch is the battery life. Oukitel bills it as 70 days, and that's generous. But I should say that's generous. It's not 70 days, at least it's not if you're using it. Now, standby, it might very well be 70 days because the standby drain is non-existent on this one. This is absolutely, we're going to talk about a use for this later on, but this is absolutely one that you could throw in your collection, especially if you're an analog watch wearer, if you like to kind of switch between smartwatches and analog watches, because you don't have to worry about it because the standby drain is really good. But I would realistically count on between 30 and 40 days, sometimes 50, depending, and your mileage is going to vary, right? Depending on how many of the exercises that you do, depending on if you're doing sleep tracking every night, how often you're checking your blood pressure, your blood oxygen, and your pulse rate, and all the rest of it. The more you do that, the more the thing's going to drain. However, on the whole, battery life is pretty darn good on this device. So it's not one that you're going to have to plug in every night when you get home, which is good. You know, that's one of the downsides to me, the Apple Watches, the Galaxy Watches, the Pixel Watch. Yeah, they're cool. Yeah, they got a lot of functionality. Sure, they lapped this several times in terms of what it could do and horsepower and all the rest of it. However, you know, it's annoying having to plug your watch in every single night. Sometimes you just want a watch that you could go a couple days without, pick up and go, whatever else, swap in between, and still have no issue with battery life, and this is certainly that watch. A bunch of different apps now. You're not talking about Wear OS here or anything else, so keep that in mind. You know, you're not talking about Wear OS 4 or any of that stuff. So that's a plus and a minus. You don't have to worry about those updates. You don't have to worry about the various glitches and things that go on here. Kind of what you see is what you get. So activity, sleep, heart rate. Sleep works fine. Had no issue with it. Pretty rudimentary sleep. It just tells you kind of sleep-wake type stuff, but it's good for keeping track of that. Heart rate I didn't have an issue with. Worked well. It was about what my pulse rate usually is. Blood pressure, believe it or not, worked pretty well. It's about what my blood pressure usually is at the doctor. Am I going to replace a visit to my general practitioner because I see that my heart rate or my blood pressure is fine here? No. But it's good to know if you're feeling dizzy, if you're not feeling well, maybe you could get kind of a general guideline with something like that. Blood oxygen seemed no issue whatsoever. You got messages, you could shutter, or you could use it as a player. That's something that we're going to talk about, what happened just there. So we're going to kind of go across here. There's an AI voice assistant I didn't mess with too much, but the regular timer, alarm, stopwatch, cycle tracking for periods, find phone and some other stuff in here, and then you have the different exercises that you could go into and start. The thing with the screen there, what you saw, if there is a big con for this device that I noticed, and it's not something that would prevent me from buying it, especially for the price, but it's something to keep in mind. The screen is finicky. It has moments where it's nice and smooth, and then it has moments where it feels like every time I touch the screen, it's an input and it puts me into an app. Like I said, not something that's disqualifying, not a reason why I wouldn't buy this particular smartwatch. However, keep that in mind that when you're using it and you're going through the menus, deliberate swipes, deliberate touches, nice and smooth when you're going through the menu. Don't kind of jab and then go down. Make sure you're nice and you're scrolling nice and smooth, and you'll be fine. Whether other stuff on here, like I said, phones, you get message notifications, WhatsApp came through here, no issue whatsoever. The other good thing is this syncs with Google Fit, which I really like for a bunch of different reasons. Because, no one's saying this has to be your only smartwatch. We're tech, we're enthusiasts, we like different devices, we like carrying around a bunch of different devices. This way, no one's saying this has to be your only smartwatch. That way, you throw everything into Google Fit. You could wear different watches and have not really miss a day of tracking or steps or calories or any of that stuff. Because that's what, to me, the early smartwatches was the most annoying. I had an Apple Watch. I had a Galaxy Frontier S3. I didn't want to wear that every day. I like watches. I collect them. I go through them. I like analog watches. I don't like digital smartwatches. So it's a way you can have kind of a collection of digital watches, smartwatches, and still be able to get your tracking every single day. So I do like that it syncs with Google Fit. Some of the other cons, just small things. We talked about the touch screen. Notifications, there's ways to tailor that, but every single notification, even the Samsung like photo notifications that you get here sometimes when you're doing an update, if you're doing an update on your Samsung, on your Galaxy or something like that, and you have the downloading from server, it'll buzz your wrist every second, literally every second, maybe multiple times a second, just over and over and over again. So that requires some tweaking, going through which notifications, which settings, which apps are allowed to send notifications to this. So you're going to have to spend some time with it. It's not exactly plug and play. I did have a little issue with Raise to Wake. You could turn it on. It works well enough. Once I reset it, it wasn't really an issue. So just little things that you catch and you're like, all right, well, let me reset it or whatever. But the things for $60 for the other functionality that you get, the build quality, it is IP68, dust and water resistant, 1 atmosphere though, which is like 30 feet. So don't go scuba diving with this. It's not something that you're going to want to take there. So keep that in mind. But it does have, splash resistant, sweat resistant. You're at the gym, something like that. You're not going to have an issue with it. But stuff like that is stuff you're going to keep in mind. Just little kind of nuisance things. Let's show you the app quickly. So I'm going to go, that's the Google Fit integration that you can see there as we go back out, hopefully. So, pretty standard stuff. It has all your stuff here. Blood pressure, it had my sleep, it's steps. You could go ahead and put in the regular health stuff that a lot of these apps have now, white noise and various exercises and breathing stuff you could do. You could go into the watch face itself. I have a custom watch face on there with cats, of course, but you could do notifications, alarms, the shutter, favorite contacts. This is where you'd upgrade it and stuff like that. So the app is called the Fit app, which they need to work on the name. But other than that, relatively inoffensive, pleasing to the eye, does the job, gives you kind of the basic information that you'd want from a smartwatch in this price range, does it well enough. I think the sensors are accurate enough, especially with blood pressure and pulse and stuff like that. So if you're doing exercises and sleep tracking, it was maybe it was a little slow recognizing that I was sleeping, but once it did a pretty good job. So, maybe kind of add a half an hour one way or the other on that. But overall, I'm kind of pleased for it. And like I said, the lens that you have to look at it through is price. $60, to me, that's a no-brainer. If you're looking for a smartwatch, just to be a smartwatch, you don't have to worry about Wear OS or iOS or Watch OS and all the rest of it, updates and apps and things like that. What you see is what you get. And for that money, I think it's a pretty decent deal. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.